We're previewing the 2024 Sunbelt Media Days with ESPN's Rocky Boiman. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right. We are fortunate to have my friend, Rocky Boiman from ESPN, also hosts afternoon talk show on WLW, also an author. He is co-hosting the Sunbelt Media Days with another friend, Matt Stewart. And so we talk about as much as we can in one episode, the teams that always expect to win, who are the favorites, who could surprise. You had Texas State trying to replace one guy, and it was like 3 with a quarterback. And then you got ULM, who are bringing in like 70 new guys. So let's get to it. He is going to be co-hosting the 2024 Sunbelt Media Days. He's part of ESPN's college football coverage. He is Rocky Boiman on Locked On Sunbelt. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's preview the 2024 Sunbelt Media Days with my buddy Rocky Boiman. Him and Matt Stewart will be hosting them for the Sunbelt on ESPN+. Rocky is part of ESPN's college football coverage. He also hosts afternoons on WLW in Cincinnati. And, of course, his best-selling self-published book, Rocky's Rules, a playbook for becoming your best in challenging times. Rock, thanks so much for hopping on. It could be an interesting season for the Sun Belt in 2024. I think they have an outside shot. A couple of teams have some good opportunities to put themselves in the playoff conversation, and that'll be early on, right, with Texas State playing UTSA and Arizona State, and App. Could they surprise Clemson and then have to go on the road to play East Carolina in week 2 and 3?
No. Yeah. Well, Dave, always a pleasure being with you, man. As I've told you, I think you do a great job on these Locked On Sunbelt podcasts. I tune in, I listen to your insight, and it's a pleasure to join you. But yeah, in terms of the Sunbelt this year, a very exciting year. I think both App State and Texas State, in my opinion, have a shot. Texas State bringing back the Sunbelt Player of the Year, as a transfer in McLeod. You look at that schedule, they play UTSA and Arizona State, but both those games are at home, which I think would be weird for like an Arizona State to be playing in San Marcos like that. So they could shock some people. And then App State brings back maybe one of the Sunbelt's best quarterbacks and a very deep roster. A chance early on, I want to say it was at week 2 or week 3, they play Liberty, who's kind of by all accounts everyone else's favorite to be the G5 representative. So they go in there and beat them, and they have the schedule to get some things done. So, yeah, very exciting year. Look, it's all – just college football in general is hard to put your finger on anymore with the transfer portal and all these kids. And a lot of these Sunbelt teams have 30 guys that exited, and they'll bring in 30 guys. And, one thing I think I've learned about the portal, you never know how that's exactly going to pan out. You think you like a kid, and boy, he's a former 4-star, and he went to went to Texas A&M for a year, but I don't know how that all works out. So it's a little bit up in the air, but it's going to make for a very, very fun season.
So the epitome of the transfer portal and NIL was G.J. Kinney, and obviously he's going to have some questions to answer at media days. But his head wasn't spinning, right? So from the outside, looking in, his quarterback T.J. Finley was taking his time coming back, so he can't be holding the bag with no quarterback. So he went out and got a quarterback. And unfortunately, that quarterback had off-field issues. Well, T.J. Finley comes back. The other quarterback decides to come. T.J. Finley says, you got that quarterback. I'm leaving. That quarterback with the off-field problems has to leave. And then a month later, he ends up getting the Sunbelt Player of the Year. I'm not sure G.J. Kinney had an offseason up until the end of spring ball. His head must have been spinning and not sleeping and just having stomach issues for the better part of a month. But that seems to be the epitome of what the portal is these days. I don't blame the players for doing this. I can't blame the coaches for doing that. Some things may he could have avoided. But, that was a whole whirlwind in just a couple of weeks for GJ Kinney and the Texas State Bobcats. Now it's all worked out with McLeod, and obviously a lot is expected of him this year.
Yeah, I don't think that's how GJ Kinney, how he wrote it down, how it was going to work out. And somehow, out of damn nowhere, he winds up with a Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year. And so it's better to be lucky than good sometimes, I guess. But just a quick story about Jordan McLeod. I had the pleasure last year of calling. If you remember, it was like week 5 or 6. It was Georgia Southern, who was 4-1. It was versus James Madison at James Madison, who was undefeated. Wow. It was a great game, and if you remember the lead up going into that, and we sat in Kurt Cignetti's office, like leading up to that week, he had called out Jordan McLeod, who of course was then the quarterback for JMU. He called him out in the media, basically talked about his work ethic was terrible. He wasn't taking care of his body. He wasn't doing the things that are required for a quarterback. And my play-by-play guy at the time, John Schriffen, we had an interesting conversation during the game back and forth about, I think his point was, boy, is it kind of not a good look for your head coach to be calling out your quarterback publicly. I mean, he did it it was purposeful.
Yes, sure.
And the side I took was, I think, he likes this kid. He don't care about his feelings. Football is not a feelings business, right? This is about how do I get the most out of my guy. And we kind of had a good discussion about that back and forth. But I think from that moment, it appears that Cignetti calling him out and questioning his character, his manhood, and his preparation really worked out. The guy goes on for an unbelievable season, 3,600 yards, 35 touchdowns. And but I thought that was an interesting moment. And now, of course, he's at Texas State and expecting a great year out of him.
Having spoken to Kurt Cignetti a couple of times, I would probably guarantee you and John Schifrin, whatever he said publicly was much worse privately.
There's no doubt about it. And
look, direct to football. He does not do he doesn't do coach speak to the team. He doesn't do coach speak to the media. I'm sure he doesn't do coach speak to the players. Whatever he said privately was much worse than it was publicly.
There's no doubt. And I mean, look at the Sun Belt. That's a blow to lose him and a coach like that, because I really liked him. He is all ball, man. There's I don't know how much of Kurt Cignetti there is outside of football, but he's a fantastic coach. He moves on to Indiana, and of course Bob Chesney will have a big task in front of him, but I think he's up to it. But a shame that the Sun Belt loses a guy like Kurt Cignetti.
Well, see, that's why he's such the broadcaster that he is. That's an outstanding segue. Let's go to Bob Chesney, and let's stay with JMU, if you will, because I'm a big Bob Chesney fan. He may or may not have been in line to get the Syracuse job before they decided on Fran Brown. But Bob Chesney is different than many of these other coaches. He has a ton of head coaching experience. Right. The coach, Tim Beck, no head coaching experience, tons of assistant coaching experience. Right. GJ Kinney, a couple of years head coaching before he got Texas State, but Jared Parker, no head coaching experience. My guy Kane Womack had head coaching experience at the D1 level, but he decided he needed to get Power 5 back in the Power 5 coordinating position. Jeff Levy from Mississippi State, he doesn't have any head coaching experience, but he got the head coaching job in Mississippi because of the Power 5 situation. So as a player and as an analyst, where do you see that in? Because yes, they had a lot of turnover at JMU. They got some players back as well, transferred in. I'm a big fan of Bob Chesney. Obviously, the expectations are really high, but I'm not sure there's going to be a huge fall off because Bob he's been there, done that is what I'm trying to say. I went a long way of saying he's been there, done that, where the other guys, they don't know. They don't even know how they're going to react at certain situations.
No, I agree with you. I actually had the pleasure of calling a Holy Cross at South Dakota State game 2 years ago. It was an FCS semifinal game. So yeah, I mean, just talking with the guy, you're immediately impressed. The guy knows what he's doing. He knows how to build programs. I think in all his years as a head coach, he's only had one losing season. So the proof is in the pudding. He knows what he's doing. You watch his offense. They run the ball well. They pass the ball well. It's a scheme that's going to keep defenses on their toes. So yeah, I think having that head coaching experience is certainly valuable, especially to to navigate a mass exodus like they had. You know what I mean? With all those players entering the transfer portal. But they're going to bring in a bunch of guys, some Power 5 guys that they've brought in. You look at their schedule. I think, early on, their first 5 games at Charlotte, they got Gardner-Webb, at UNC, Ball State, then at ULM. I mean, you could potentially go 4-1, right, to start off the season there. Depending on how things kind of lay out there. But certainly excited about having Bob Chesney in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, we'll see what that Carolina. There's some questions on quarterbacks. I'm a big fan. I don't know about you, but I determine my favorites by, is the coach the same and the quarterback the same? And when you're bringing in a new quarterback, you got no idea. So we'll see. And, who's ever filling Drake May's shoes at Carolina, good luck. We know that Dylan Morris, obviously, is coming back. He went from Washington to JMU. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk App State. We'll talk Will Hall with ESPN's Rocky Boiman. He's co-hosting this year's Sun Belt Media Days along with Matt Stewart. Let me tell you a little bit about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's continue our conversation with Rocky Boiman from ESPN's College Football. He's co-hosting the Sunbelt Media Days. We talk a little bit App State. We throw in some Cajuns, and we talk about Will Hall and, the Fighting Will Halls down in Hattiesburg. It is Rocky Boiman on Locked On Sunbelt. We're talking to Rocky Boiman. We're previewing the 2024 Sunbelt Media Days. He's with ESPN, also WLW in Cincinnati. All right, so one of the issues and it's a good issue to have, we have in the Sunbelt, all of these teams, whether it be at the Sunbelt level or the FBS level or the FCS level, they all expect to win, right? So Marshall had success. Georgia Southern had success. App State had success at both levels. JMU had success. Everybody expects to win. The problem is not everybody can win, right? So that's an issue. One of the teams that had a lot of success was App State. And while, Sean Clark and the Mountaineers played in the Sun Belt Championship game last year, it hasn't been what it used to be. I think they are a favorite in the East. Yep. It'll be interesting because of the turnover and the new coaches and the quarterbacks, whatever the case is. We'll see what JMU and Georgia Southern does. But how much pressure is on Sean Clark this year to actually go out and win the Sun Belt Championship to move forward with the Mountaineers?
No, I think it's big. And App State is a program just historically that is used to winning. You know what I mean? And they had a 6 season 2 years ago, went 9-5 last year. After starting off the season real slow, I think they started off 3-4. So, but to your point, I think you said earlier the teams that I do the same thing you do. If you got a continuity at head coach and quarterback, I'm going to give you the nod there, and that's what App State has. They got a veteran coach in Sean Clark, he is the App State guy. He's been there forever, and they get Joey Aguilar back, a very, very productive quarterback who came on early in the season. I think they'll get they'll lose the running back Nate Noel, but I think they're pretty deep there. Bring back a lot of good players on defense, and they're actually a team that played good defense in the G5 last year. So. I think that's something that sticks at App State, but certainly the expectations are high. I think, but it's kind of a make or break thing for him for Sean Clark too, because they bring back such a good team. The expectations are going to be very, very high, but I think they're there to meet them.
Something that we don't usually get. Some of these coaches are being upfront and honest. We're not getting coach speak from Will Hall at Southern Miss, and we're not getting coach speak from Mike Desimo with the Cajuns. I happen to think the Cajuns are a little bit better shape, but both coaches are saying basically I got to win or else I may be out. Blatantly.
Yeah, and that's it. All goes back to expectations. I mean, look what Billy Napier did at Louisiana for 2 and 3 seasons there. So yeah, the bar is set very, very high. That's a program that's used to winning, and they expect it.
And so what about? So I think the Cajuns are set almost everywhere but quarterback. Although they're bringing back 2 experienced guys, whether Ben Wolders is healthy, you got Chandler Fields backing them up. But they have experience, offensive line, defensive line, running back, linebacker, defensive backfield. Their most talented group is their youngest group is maybe the wide receivers. And so, they don't throw it to, this, they don't throw it to the tight end nearly enough for me. Nobody.
You're a tight end guy. That's right.
That's right. Outside of Kansas City and maybe San Francisco, nobody throws it to the tight end as much as I would like. And so it's that quarterback that's going to make the difference for the Cajuns. And again, like you said, I mean, he knows that he's putting the pressure on himself, which you usually don't see these days, right? I'm a big reasons and excuses guys. All right. And so, don't complain to me about the rain. That's an excuse. All right.
Right.
But
right.
If your offensive line is hurt and your quarterback is hurt, I mean, maybe people don't want to hear it, but those are reasons, right? There's a reason that the third string guy is playing now and wasn't playing before. It sounds like an excuse, but that's a reason that he's the third string guy.
100%. But look, that's what I love about football. It's it's a no excuses, no explanations business. It's results driven. No one cares if you had injuries or you're dealing with all your whole offense left in the transfer portal. None of that stuff.
Right,
These coaches know that. It's one of the very few results driven businesses out there anymore, in my opinion. But no, I mean, Louisiana, I think they're going to be. I think they can be good. I don't know. I haven't heard much. Maybe you have about Collier. They brought in the transfer quarterback Collier. I don't know what.
Yeah,
so he'll compete.
A little bit of news in the last couple of days. He had a big spring ball game, right? And my guy Kevin Foote from the Acadian Advocate, he had to do a double take because he was wearing number 2, and he kind of looked like Zion Chris. Like, did Zion transfer or not? And all of a sudden, we've been informed, and we don't know. Maybe it's just not updated, but he's not on the Cajuns website roster anymore. So I don't know if he's with the team or not. And the SID has moved on. So I don't know if that's just an oversight. He wasn't put on to begin with, and he was taken off. So we gotta find that out. But yes, he had a fantastic spring. I'm not sure if he's with the school anymore or with the team.
More transfer portal shenanigans, maybe. Who knows? But they get Zylan Perry back, right? The running back.
Yes, he needs to hang on to the football.
That's a good thing. So I think they'll be in the mix as well.
And then Will Hall and Southern Miss, a lot on the shoulders of Tate Rodemaker, the transfer Rodemaker from Florida State. Will Hall stepped away from play calling duties. They usually have a solid team. He went to a bowl game a couple of years ago, struggled last year. Maybe they found the right formula. Obviously got to, replace Frank Gore Jr., but Will Hall also is passionate, kind of like a Sam Pittman type of deal, really passionate, loves the job that he has, not necessarily looking for a bigger and better job, trying to get this one in the right direction. And it's been a bumpy road, mostly because the quarterback situation hasn't been settled since Will Hall has been there.
Yeah, I mean, they've run essentially the Wildcat more or less the last couple of years with Frank Gore Jr. It's hard. Look, getting that quarterback is hard. I mean, look at the NFL teams. The Jets have been trying to get a quarterback for a long time, man. It's not easy to do, right? So, hopefully that'll happen. I like Will Hall a lot. I think he's a damn good football coach. I just think it's tough, probably being at a place like Southern Miss, especially in the day and age of the transfer portal, where it just makes it even harder. You recruit a kid in. I mean, they're going to develop more kids, right? They're going to bring a kid in, develop him. Well, now those kids that you develop for a year or two, they turn out to be really good. And boom, they hit the road and go to a Power 4 school. So, tough with them. But I know I just remember from off their schedule, they play. I remember their schedule being pretty tough. I think they play at Texas State. I think they got they get Arkansas State at home, but it'll be a tough year for them. But I'm pulling for Will Hall, man. I think he's a really good football coach.
All right, let's take a time out. We'll come back and wrap things up with Rocky Boiman from ESPN. He's co-hosting the 2024 Sunbelt Media Days with Matt Stewart. We'll talk about ULM. Is a left-handed quarterback a thing, and who could surprise in the Sunbelt in 2024? Let me tell you about FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, and I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. And all I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's wrap up things with Rocky Boiman from ESPN's College Football. He's co-hosting the 2024 Sunbelt Media Days with Matt Stewart on ESPN+. We talked the tough spot that Bryant Vincent finds himself in ULM with a huge turnover of players for the Warhawks. Is it a thing about left-handed quarterbacks? Gio Lopez could be the South Alabama starter, and who could surprise in the Sunbelt in 2024? He is Rocky Boiman on Locked On Sunbelt. Talking to Rocky Boiman, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Rocky, part of ESPN's college football coverage, and we'll be hosting the Sunbelt Media Days along with Matt Stewart on ESPN+. All right, so let's do the opposite of what we talked about with G.J. Kinney, and you mentioned bringing in a bunch of new guys with other teams. We're talking with G.J. Kinney in Texas State, talking about one guy, or three as the quarterback situation may have been. Bryant Vincent at ULM, I mean, I'm told he's bringing in 70 new players.
Yeah, that's basically what I've heard as well. Right. Yeah. Yeah. But he's a guy, look, I think it's safe to say it's a unique situation at ULM, sure, right? Just from a resource standpoint, from just a historical standpoint, that sort of thing of how people have felt about that program. But I think because of that, there's a literal handful of guys that are up for that job. And I think Bryant Vincent is that guy. I mean, he's coached down there for a long, long time. He knows the area, obviously former UAB coordinator, was at New Mexico last year. He's recruited that area. He knows the relationships. So he's going to bring in the JUCO guys. He's going to bring in anybody and everybody to try to turn that program around, which is a tough deal. But when you're 133rd out of 134 teams in returning production, that's a total, utter rebuild. Right. But I like Bryant Vincent. I called a UAB game. Actually, I called LSU UAB 2 years ago, and I was impressed with him. And I've actually watched a lot of their offense, just some of the schemes. Dave, what I do is I watch all these offenses for my job, but part of it also is I steal stuff for my 10-year-old son's football team. So any good schemes out there, I try to pick apart and take some stuff from. And I really liked his scheme. I like what he did on offense with the running backs and things like that. So anyway, I think it'll be fun to watch, and I certainly wish him all the best because again, that's a tough place to succeed, but I think they got the perfect guy in Bryant Vincent.
I do. Him and John Hartwell. And like you mentioned, if you take the AD job at ULM and the head coaching job at ULM, you got to want to be there, right? You got to want to do that because you know it's going to be a process. The problem with ULM this year is you look at that schedule. After the first two ball games, it's really tough to find another win. And, don't take this the wrong way, ULM fans, but when there's no cakewalk team, for ULM, the thing is ULM is usually the week off, if you will. Right. I do think that ULM will be tougher. They may not have more than 2 wins this year, but I think teams are going to know they played ULM, as I've had Coach Vincent on a couple of times. It's just tough. It's just tough, how to go and surprise teams. I don't know if you've ever called a game at ULM, but the reason it's tough to play at ULM because you have to provide all the energy. It's one thing when, you're in a packed, App State or Marshall or, Cajun Field or something like that, and the crowd is rowdy. It's easy for the visiting team to get up. When there's nobody there and it's kind of a disappointing situation, it's tough for the road team to manufacture their own enthusiasm because there's nobody there. There's no one
Right.
getting the juices flowing. You know, you like you guys on the road. You guys, and I'm doing this, purposely. You guys like to get booed when you go on the road.
Right. Yeah. No, I have called a game at ULM. I called UTEP at ULM like 3 years ago, if I recall. But yeah, look, I do think, teams take on the identity of their head coach. And I think, Brian Vincent is a grinder, tough guy. He's going to emphasize toughness and, outlasting opponents and being in condition and, all that sort of thing. So I think for them, maybe the first year goal is to be a really, really tough out. Maybe the schedule and the wins won't maybe show up, but if you're Brian Vincent, you want every team that comes in there to say, God, man, we got away with, boy, we're happy as hell to come out of here with a win. You know what I mean? Right. And I think that's something to build on.
They're gonna surprise somebody. They're gonna beat somebody they shouldn't beat, and maybe that'll be a couple of times. All right, a couple more minutes here with Rocky Boiman previewing the Sun Belt Media Days in the 2024 season. All right, so we talked about coaches and quarterbacks coming back. So South Alabama has a unique situation, right? Both the coach and the quarterback are coming back, but in new roles, right? Major Applewhite moving up from OC to head coach, and Gio Lopez, we think, is going to be the starting quarterback. He's had an interesting ride. Balled out in the bowl game for South Alabama, but then didn't complete a pass in the spring game. So I don't know if there's issues there with the whole who knows. How does that work from a player's and coach's point of view when you're just being promoted? I mean, I'm sure, obviously some of the staff is different and some player turnover with, Kane Womack going up to Alabama for sure. But, it's just, it's an evolution. It's not a wholesale changes.
Yeah. And it's, look, when you're hiring guys from within, there's continuity, which is always good, especially in the day and age of a transfer portal when everything is different, new guys, this and that. So, I imagine a lot of the verbiage and a lot of the same, there'll be some continuity there, but both, if I'm not mistaken, both those coordinators are going to be first-time coordinators. You know what I mean? So that's a little bit, tough. And Major Applewhite has been a head coach before, and so that'll be valuable. And they return some pieces. I think, I know looking at their schedule, they got a pretty brutal stretch at App State, at LSU, at Arkansas State, then Troy. In back-to-back weeks. So that's a tough stretch there for those guys. But I've always loved South Alabama's program. I liked their success. They had the last couple of years under Kane Womack, and hopefully that can continue.
So I'm going to ask you a stupid question. Outside of, the weak side, strong side, obviously for a left-handed quarterback, it's the right tackle that's the main guy compared to the left tackle for a right-handed quarterback. Does the offense change with a left-handed quarterback? Just the way the ball comes out of his hands? Do we have to flip the field? How does that work with the wide receivers and the way you play call and based where you're on the field? And is that really a stupid question?
No, it's not a stupid question. No, I mean, obviously, like a lot of your play action boot stuff will probably happen to the left. So he's rolling, to the way he would throw the ball, because that's what's most comfortable.
Sure.
I do think, just in talking with receivers and coaches, I do think receivers got to get used to catching a ball from a left-handed quarterback. Dave, I know coaches that physically will not recruit a left-handed quarterback.
Oh, no kidding.
Because they say it's, if you got you got four quarterbacks and, or three quarterbacks and two of them throw right hand and one's left hand, it's just enough difference in how the ball comes out and difference in how you draw up your scheme.
Sure.
So, but look, everyone around there knows that he's going to be the guy, and he's had some success and done well. So I don't imagine it'll be a major issue, but it is different. It is different.
It is a thing. Okay. Let's wrap things up with Rocky Boiman. We talked about the favorites, Texas State and App State. Who do you think could surprise this year in the Sun Belt?
Arkansas State, right? Let's go back to your moniker and mine. Continuity of head coach and quarterback, right? Yeah. And Jalen Rayner was absolutely fantastic.
Really was.
Super athletic, just a playmaker, right? And really enjoyed, watching him. My God, if they can play a little bit of defense, they may have a chance. But I think Arkansas State is that team. They, from what I gather, and again, it's always tough putting your finger on with all the the entries and exits of players. I think they got a good core of guys coming back. And I'm happy for Butch Jones. I think it's been a slow build there. But I think this is going to be his year. I think Arkansas State can be maybe that like fourth team in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, with Jalen, if you looked at his stats, because he had great numbers, like 17-7 for a true freshman, he just needs to be consistently good. He doesn't have to be great, but he'd have like the 50% days and then like the 65 and 70% days back to the 50s. You know, if things aren't going well, he needs to be able to adjust. And I would presume that comes from growth. I'm sure last year he's just trying to get the game to slow down even an inkling. And I would look for him to do, kind of look to throw on the run rather than just, first, second read, take off, which is kind of what he did last year a little bit.
Agreed. Yeah. So he'll progress in that. And Corey Rucker, right, the receiver, he's coming back. So there's a little continuity there. It's always good to have your best player and probably your best offensive playmaker coming back. And I guess Malik Hornsby is going to play some wide receiver here.
Yeah.
So they'll have some weapons, and he'll grow in that system. And Butch Jones has coached a lot of football. He knows how to coach offense. So I think they'll be in good shape. I know their schedule. They got to play at Michigan and at Iowa State, I think, weeks 3 and 4. They play at Texas State and at Louisiana, which is, probably not ideal, but I think they can surprise some people.
All right. He is Rocky Boiman, part of ESPN's college football coverage. He is also on WLW in Cincinnati, hosting afternoons. Rocky's Rules, a playbook for becoming your best in challenging times. Give everybody a rule to wrap up the day, to wrap up the episode with.
A rule. I think it's probably the most important and is focusing on the little details in life. And that's, I tell the story in my book about how, without getting all the way into it, when we were in the Super Bowl, the Bears, our first touchdown, Reggie Wayne caught a 55-yard touchdown and was completely uncovered, right? And I was like, okay, this is great, and Tony Dungy kind of asked us after the season, like, what happened on that play? And everyone gave their answer. And he said, no, I'll tell you what happened. He said, I talked to Lovie Smith, and basically 10 guys were playing one coverage. The 11th guy was playing a different coverage because he looked on his wristband and got the wrong call. And, and here we go. This is a Super Bowl, right? Professional athletes and a little seemingly minor detail like that. And that was always Tony Dungy's thing. It was, he was always a believer of, it's the teams that do the little things right, but are consistent with them are the ones that win. It's not the huge plays. It's not the one-handed catches and all that win games. It's not jumping off sides on third down. It's not roughing the punter. It's those kind of things. So just paying attention to those small details is a way to live life, Dave. How about that?
I've heard that. That's so funny because I've heard that, if the wide receiver runs the wrong route, maybe or maybe not, you throw the interception. But I've heard coaches say you get 10 players playing one defense and the 11th playing the other, and you got a good chance that the marching band is playing after that one play.
Exactly right. It happened. Yep.
He's Rocky Boiman, him and Matt Stewart hosting the Sunbelt Media Days for ESPN Plus coming up in a couple weeks. Always great catching up with you, Rocky. Thank you so much for hopping on Locked On Sunbelt, and best of luck and have fun in New Orleans.
Dave, you're the best, buddy. Look forward to talking with you again soon here, man. Thanks.